It throws it up the left wing sideboards. Marlowe slips off a check, moves down the wing, 3-on-3, cross the line, rink right feet, shot, score! Devin Sinaguchi gets the game winner for the Sharks at 3:09 of the first overtime period. That is the second greatest comeback in the history of the National Hockey League, tying two other teams coming from behind down by 4. The Sharks have come from behind to win 6-5 in overtime, and they've got a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7 series.
Yeah. We don't usually do that, but we had to. And thanks for the Kings and the Sharks' respective teams for the play-by-play. As Peter said, Peter picked the music. Anytime I play Benny Hill, it's always a good time.
I'm smiling.
Michael Jackson's favorite show, by the way. He visited Benny Hill in the hospital. Not making that up.
Really?
When, MJ was still walking. So.
You learn a lot of things here on the War Room.
Yeah, things I shouldn't know, like who really cares, but, scantily-clad nurses, that happens. Look, it happens, 6-5. What a comeback. One for the ages. A few emails have come in here. Paul from Ventura, California writes, so from the Kings' perspective, is it, geez, we can't beat those guys even though we have a 4-0 lead? Or is it, we can't possibly make any more mistakes than we did last night? We just put that game behind us and go out and win the series. Paul, you got to go with the second. You're darn right. Mark writes in, after you storm out to a 4-0 lead and then your team gives up 4 goals in less than a single period and the opponent is still coming on, wouldn't it make sense to call a timeout before they have a chance to erase your entire lead before the end of the second period? Oh, yeah. Time to bring on our guest for today. He's been patient listening to the carnage from last night. He goes with the name Fake Chris Kontos. I don't know why. Maybe he'll explain. He's got a great website called theroyalhalf.com. Confessions of an LA Kings half-season ticket holder. Now 42 seasons without a Stanley Cup. Mr. Fake Chris Kontos, thanks for sitting through the carnage. Thanks for coming on the War Room.
Thank you. I know you guys are excellent talk show producers because you took a guest who was already at a very low place in their life and made them sit through 5 minutes of reliving one of the worst sports memories they'll ever have.
Yes, but now it's seared into your memory banks. So, as they say, you can't have the sweet unless you had the sour. In your history of being a Kings fan, how long you followed the Kings, first of all, sir?
I've been a hardcore fan since obviously when Gretzky came in '88.
Right.
Before then, just a handful of games, but pretty much about 23 years now at the level that I'm at right now.
So, all right if I call you Fake Chris?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's a little shorter than Fake Chris Kontos. Now, in the litany of games, disappointments for the Kings since 1988, where does that stand for you? The worst?
I think it absolutely has to be the worst. But if any of your listeners have ever kind of sat and wondered, hey, what would it be like to be a Kings fan? I wonder
Sure.
what that's like. I think you could just watch last night's game, and that would explain to you what it's like to follow this team.
It encapsulates the disappointment, the falling short. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and it's especially for the last 3 years, we've been the kind of team that does that comeback. We've been a scrappy young team. There's that great game in Dallas a couple years. There's a game against Atlanta where they came down from 4 goals. So we've always been the one battling back. We've never been the one with a 4-0 lead in the second period in the Game 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Were you at the game last night, sir?
I was at the game.
What was the mood like? 3 points I want to ask. Before the game began, the build-up to the anthems, when they scored the 4th goal early in the second period, and when the Sharks tied the game. What was the give me all 3 signposts.
Well, luckily we had a little bit of motivation. There was some calmness for the San Jose Mercury News named Mark Purdy, who wrote an article yesterday comparing Staples Center to Kenny G.
That's low.
And comparing HP Pavilion to a Metallica concert.
All right.
So, really smart to rile up your opponent's fans in the first home game of the series for them. So Staples Center was a complete madhouse. The most I've ever seen it in a playoff game ever, and especially since we've only had 4 home playoff games in the last 8 years.
Sure.
From there, so it was a madhouse from the anthem on, and then those 2 first goals came really quick. I mean, the place was nuts. With a 4-0 lead at the top of the second, people were booking flights to San Jose for the clinching game. They were looking into the Vancouver Chicago game to see who our next opponent was. We were on easy street.
But Fake Chris, you're a savvy Kings fan. Did you in the back of your mind go, not so quick?
Absolutely, 100%. I've followed this team long enough to know what disappointment feels like. And I think that there was probably a few seconds where I was like, we got this. And then I kind of slap myself in the face and be like, no, you're a Kings fan. You're a Los Angeles Kings fan. You're not supposed to have this happen to you.
So what was it like when the Sharks tied it up late in the third?
It was utter deflation is probably the only way I could describe it.
Right.
The place just fell dead silent. And you have to understand, too, this all happened in the second period. So we went through a scoreless third.
Yes.
To get to that overtime. And when that goal was scored, I mean, it was just impending doom was the overall feeling at Staples Center.
Yes, I made a mistake. You're right. It was late in the second and then no goals in the third. Yeah. Peter?
No, I was just going to mention how you said the crowd was electric. Everybody wore black. I mean, usually we've seen the whiteout in Winnipeg. We saw the whiteout in Phoenix. Everybody kind of dressing orange in Philadelphia and so on. But this was all black, and I loved it. And you got the white towels going. It was a great little scene there.
Yeah, it's great. They're switching to those to their black third jerseys full time for the playoffs, and I think for next year. So,
do you think they're going to switch now because of the way they lost?
What's that?
Do you think they're going to switch that jersey and go back to their regular one after last night's debacle?
If there's one thing you know about following the Los Angeles Kings, switching the jerseys has nothing to do with their win-loss record.
Okay.
Now, who's the whipping boy for this? Because I'm getting a lot of people saying Dustin frickin' Penner.
You couldn't find a player on the Kings that has more vile thrown on him right now than Dustin effing Penner.
Yeah.
I can't blame John Quick. A lot of those goals were great passes across the crease. I blame the entire team in front of John Quick. They had a 4-0 lead at the start of the second period, and they put it into neutral. And they forgot that the Sharks have 7 guys who've scored 20-plus goals and decided not to put a body on anyone at the side of the net. And you see that goal from Couture and one of the goals from Clough and even the tip-in from Marleau. Those are all guys who were left unchecked at the side of the net. But that back-checking by Dustin Penner on that game-winning goal by Setaguchi was one of the biggest monstrosities I've ever seen committed by an NHL player in my 20-plus years of watching the game. I mean, I would say he was loafing, but that would be an insult to people who loaf.
Yeah. And on your website, which is a great website, theroyalhalf.com, you got a picture of Dustin Penner sort of checking a Shark, and he's got 2 bricks for feet where the skate should be, which is hilarious.
That's pretty much sums up. And you have to understand, too, this is part of the ethos of being a Kings fan. We traded for Anson Carter in the 2000s. He was a 30-goal scorer at the time. He had 1 point in 15 games after we traded for him.
Right.
We traded for Mark Parrish, who was a consistent 20-goal scorer. 1 goal in 15 games. The Kings trade deadline acquisitions have such been the kiss of death. And the fact that Penner is signed up for another year at a crazy salary, and they give up a first-round draft pick and a former first-round draft pick in Colton Tubert, I don't know if Dustin Penner can ever show his face at a Kings game again.
There you go. The Hollies have a song called King Midas in reverse. Maybe that's the Kings theme song. Peter?
Well, there is some solace, though, the fake Chris Kontos, that you didn't give up a guy like Braden Shen in that deal, because that was the scuttlebutt there. But it'd probably be even worse right now if that was the case. But I don't know if you can blame specifically everything on Dustin Penner for not back-checking. I mean, you win as a team, you lose it as a team, and they lost as a team. I know you can't blame Quick, but there was a few goals that he was flopping around like a fish out of water, and he did not look good.
Yeah, and he's been so solid in the previous 2 games, and I mean, everyone talks about Drew Doughty's performance in Game 4, and it was a great performance the way he really lifted the offense on his back. But Game 2 was won by John Quick. He was incredibly solid in that, and yes, he wasn't as solid last night. But I don't know how you're supposed to beat the Sharks when you're just going to leave a guy unchecked at the side of the net, just waiting for the pass.
Now tomorrow night, Game 4. It's going to be weird, I'm telling you, fake Chris, because if the Kings get the lead, you can't feel safe, but you don't want to get behind to the Sharks. That's going to be a dysfunctional game. I'm going to have to step and watch that one. What do you expect?
I think the Kings will come back hard, and I know the fans will come back hard, and I know that the Kings fans, Los Angeles gets really a bad reputation for being a sports town, and hockey, especially in Los Angeles, and the 18,000 people that go to Staples Centers for games are some of the most knowledgeable and educated hockey fans around. It just doesn't permeate past Staples Center. You're never in a bar in Los Angeles and just start talking hockey with someone. So I think the fans will be back. I think the team will be back. I think you make a really good point, because it's like this team does play well when they're behind, and they obviously are having difficulty learning how to play with a lead. I think they'll come back strong. It's just so hard because this series could easily be 3-0 right now. And everyone will be talking about what an upset.
Yes, it could be, but the fact is, it ain't. That's the trouble. We're talking to the fake Chris Kontos. Maybe we'll get the real one on with him one day, who runs the website, theroyalhalf.com. A couple more questions before we let you go and lick your wounds. Get ready for tomorrow night. Any Ducks fans in the audience just cracking up?
No, luckily there were no Ducks fans last night.
Oh, they were laughing, though. Come on, they were loving it.
Gosh, yeah, absolutely. And they have a right to be. The worst part about the Kings-Ducks rivalry is that the Ducks have a Stanley Cup. I mean,
oh, yes.
We can sit there and tell them what idiots they are all the time, but they can just show that Stanley Cup right back in our face.
Yep, and they got it.
We were little San Jose fans. I was surprised for the short trip. I know a bunch of Kings fans made it up there.
Yep.
For the games last week, but very few San Jose fans. And to kind of show the rich history of that franchise, the only jerseys I saw were Thornton, Marlowe, a couple set of Gucci's. That's it. No Chris Terreri or Doug Wilson.
Yeah, no Brian Hayward or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh, yeah.
Now,
Pat Balloon.
No, you're pushing it there now. Fat balloon. Now, give us, if you can, just a quick history on your website, theroyalhalf.com.
Royalhalf.com is I've been a Los Angeles Kings half-season ticket holder for 9 years. 7 of those 9 years playoff free. When I finally was able to get season tickets in 2002, Kings had just come off 2 consecutive appearances in the playoffs and didn't make it again for 7 years. So I started to think that maybe it was my fault.
I think so.
So it's kind of views from the seats. Me and my friend half-season ticket holder buddy is his kind of moniker. We're educated fans. We love the game and we love the Kings, but we're also not willing to be complete fanboys, and we're willing to criticize them and the marketing of them and the giveaways and the product they put on the ice. So it's if you like hockey dick jokes and funny screen captions, it's the place for you.
Hey, that's my cup of tea. Now, we're going to end off with you, and we're going to have to get you back on again, seeing how the Kings track in the playoffs, Mr. Fake Chris Kontos. I'm talking about the miracle in Manchester. That predates you as a Kings fan, but you're well aware of what happened back in April of 1982, the greatest comeback in NHL playoff history. This one, it's up there, too. Now the Kings have felt the sting of such a comeback. We need a name for it. Are people leaning towards, what are they leaning towards? You guys play, where do you play? Figueroa, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Figueroa, and the win over Detroit in 2001 where they came back, I think it was 4 goals as well.
Yeah.
Frenzy on Figueroa. I threw this up on Twitter last night, and it hopefully it seems like it's caught on. I call it the fail on Figueroa.
Okay.
And the great thing about that miracle in Manchester versus I found out after ending the game last night in overtime, played that History Will Be Made commercial.
Yep.
Which I think is a complete slap in the face, and I want that 10-year contract voided.
Oh, what one loss can do. Mr. Fake Chris, good talking to you. We'll keep in contact in the playoffs. Talk to you again, sir.
All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate that. That's the Fake Chris Kontos. And he's honest about that. He's coming around and says, I'm not real, I'm fake. Great website, theroyalhalf.com. Found that just tolling around the internet and found it by accident. It's a lot of fun. King-centric, but hockey-centric. Gets into uniforms, gets into history. Some crazy stuff, silly pictures, the usual stuff. It's everything a blog should be.